Hello, my name is Andreas. I'm a service engineer at Kemper. Today, we want to show you all the important points on a 445 or a 4500 Kemper header. We're going to start with the middle gathering drums. Normally, a center table is mounted here, which is screwed on at 2 points. Once here at this point, and down here on the frame. You need to loosen the drum. For this, you have to tighten these 6 screws. That will tighten the clutch, and the drum becomes powerless. Then we'll be able to spin the drum by hand. This is the same procedure for every drum on the 445. Now, we turn the drum so we can see and check the cleaners. These cleaners are in very good condition. They're sharp-edged. It's particularly important for the cleaner to remove or chop away the leaves of the maize plant that can sometimes build up in the scraper at the back and block the drum. But if these cleaners have no sharp edges and are worn out at the front, you need to replace them. It's important that the cleaner is sharp-edged. Either you can order new cleaners and weld them to another tooth, or cut the worn-out one out and weld a new one back on. It's always easier to use another tooth. You should weld the cleaner longer than needed. Then cut the length to adjust the cleaner as close as possible to the scraper. If possible, the distance should not exceed 1 millimeter. There must be a sharp-edged cleaner on every drum and row of teeth. Now we're at the big gathering drum. The drums are also loosened by tightening the screws, just like we did with the small drums. These cleaners run through the scraper at the back, and they must be as close as possible to the scraper. This cleaner here should be set a little longer, so that it runs in the scraper as closely as possible. There's another cleaner on the lowest row on this curved tooth. As you can see, this one is totally round. There's no sharp edge left. This isn't good, because it will possibly lead to crop accumulation. You have to renew the cleaner here. To do that, you need to cut this old cleaner out and then weld on a new one. It's important that you only weld it on the bottom and the back of the cleaner. Therefore, the front edge remains sharp. You could also weld a new cleaner on another tooth. But if there are wear tips welded on like on this drum, you first need to cut one wear tip out to weld the new cleaner on. If you don't cut it out and weld the new cleaner on top, it will be too high, and it won't go through the scraper at the back. Here, this cleaner is perfect. It's nice and sharp at the front. It clears away very well the leaves of the maize plant and the dirt out of the scraper. Now we're at the feeding drum. To turn the drum by hand, you need to tighten the clutch again, like you do for the gathering drum. The cleaners on the 3 bottom rows of teeth are particularly important, because if they are not sharp-edged, it can often lead to blockages. The cleaner on the 3rd row is sharp enough. It runs in here, and it still looks pretty good. It could be a little longer, but it looks pretty sharp-edged. The bottom 2 cleaners are much too narrow, so you need to replace them. I'll now show you how to weld a new cleaner onto this row of teeth and adjust it accordingly. Now I've welded or tacked the cleaner on here a little bit too long from the start. If I turn it now, the cleaner does not go into the scraper. So I shorten the cleaner with the grinder so that it just fits into the scraper. I've now adjusted the cleaner in the drum so that it runs through the scraper as closely as possible. And I'll repeat this process with these 3 rows of teeth on this drum and on the other drum. Every gathering drum has friction discs installed in the drum as an overload protection. You have to bleed the discs once a year. For that, you have to tighten these screws as we did before to spin the drum. As soon as I've done 1 full turn of the drum by hand, the friction discs are bled. If a gathering drum stops turning while working, you need to check and replace the worn friction discs. For that, you need to unscrew this big screw in the middle. This is an M20 screw, and it holds the clutch. Now I'll take out the screw, Normally, you can easily take the clutch out, but it could also get stuck. In that case, you can use a pair of pliers or something similar. The clutch sits on the toothing. The first friction disc is underneath the clutch. Under the drum is another one. You can easily replace the disc from the top when you remove the clutch. To check or replace the bottom disc under the drum, you must take off the whole drum. If there are any problems with the drum, I would replace the top friction disc. That can easily be done like I explained before. Before you reassemble the clutch with the new friction disc, you have to clean the surface of the drum with sandpaper. The surface is now cleaned and you can put the new disc and the clutch back in. Then you put the screw back in as well and tighten it up. After that, you have to loosen the screws again to set the drum back into its working position. The procedure with the friction discs is the same for all 6 gathering drums. The only difference is that the large gathering drums have 3 friction discs in the top of the drum instead of 1. These are the blades and the cleaners under these blades. It's important that the cleaners are sharp-edged. For the blades, it's important that they have a coating. Here on these blades, you can see that the coating is already worn out and they have to be replaced. The shift collars of the hexagonal shaft must be sharp. If they are worn and round, the outer drums won't be driven properly and can easily get stuck. You have to check the shift collar once a year. Now we're in the area of the folding mechanism. This arm is screwed to the gearbox with the 4 Allen screws. You have to check those screws once a year to see if they're still tight enough. Also, you have to check the 2 Allen screws next to the hydraulic cylinder and the ones next to the drive shaft of the outer arm.